What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical average American here today to react and learn about what Canadians think of Americans. I'm a little scared for this one. A little scared, I'm not gonna lie. I'm a little nervous, we can say. Uh, I think it's good, though. I always think it's good for Americans to learn about what other parts of the world think of America. We think we're pretty cool. I don't know. Maybe we could be more humble. Actually, maybe that's a criticism other people around the world have. I don't know. But most Americans seem to like America, but we aren't very good at knowing what the outside world thinks of us. I mean, for the most part, in my experience, most Americans seem to think that other countries around the world are pretty cool as well, for the most part, especially Canada. Americans have a very positive impression of Canada, positive impressions of lots of other places in Europe. But today, I want to learn about what Canadians think of Americans. Um, for better or worse. This video here that I found is from the CBC, which is the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, or something, CBC, Canadian news outlet. This video has Neil MacDonald, must be a reporter for the CBC, talking to experts and average Canadians to find out how Canadians feel about our neighbor to the south. Wow. Okay, talking to average typical Canadians. This is going to be fascinating. What, are they just going to walk up to people and be like, Americans, what do you think of them? I hope so, that's what and I hope people are honest too, because I really want to know. This video was made at least 7 years ago, which I guess is sort of important context because people's opinions can change about places over the course of time, of course. So this video is a little older, but nonetheless, I'm fascinated to hear.
It's Monday afternoon on the remarkably multicultural campus of Ryerson University in downtown Toronto.
Yeah.
A lot of these students are new immigrants or second generation. Others belong to the big city's dwindling white population. But their bond is their Canadianism, a shared patriotic cockiness bordering on smug, if polling data is to be believed.
What? Oh my gosh. This is what I thought they were going to say about America. Their patriotism, borderline cockiness? This is based on a poll or something? This not the direction I expected this to start in.
Patriotic cockiness bordering on smug, if polling data is to be believed.
Okay.
Even the newest arrivals seem to have internalized that to be Canadian is to somehow live on a higher moral plane, especially with regard to certain others.
Wow, okay. This announcer, this reporter is kind of like setting this up as a defense, like defending America off the bat for some reason, where he's like, some of these people, some of these Canadians think they're better, especially to certain other people to the south. And then they show an American flag. It's like, I think we know who you're talking about.
You can think about national identity as having
those others are the subject of Tracy Rainey's Canadian Studies class today.
We need to build up a national identity. On average, Canadians are more likely to say that they would rather be a citizen of Canada than any other country, that the world would be a better place if more citizens were like Canadians were.
That may sound like arrogant or something to some people, but I think that's like okay. Like, objectively, Canada is a really great country. So in this case in particular, it like is absolutely fine. And also, even if you don't have the best country on the planet, if it's where you were born or due to the circumstances of your life, that's where you have to live, I think it's okay to be like a little like proud of where you are, if you agree that that place that you're living is a good place and has like good values and stuff. Anyway, this is interesting. We haven't even gotten to the interviews talking about America yet.
That we are, in some respects, superior to Americans.
To her students, though, in some respects, barely begins to express it.
Let me
say, I guess I should say real quick, that all being said, having an open-minded attitude that there's lots of value to be learned from how other nations around the world do things it'd be foolish to not realize that there's a lot to learn from everyone all over the planet on how to do things, and that you're always learning and getting better. No place is perfect, but if some of the Canadians here like want to be like, Canada's the greatest. I love Canada. It's wonderful. There should be more stuff like Canada. Like, that's fine. If that's their opinion, I think that's totally fine. Like, if Americans want to say that about America, like, okay, it's your opinion. It's fine.
Rainey tests the question.
Generally speaking, Canada is better than the United States. Could we see a show of hands who would agree with that?
Oh, here we go.
Okay. Versus a show.
Wow, they're really asking, like, the questions very bluntly, which I appreciate. Like, super blunt. Do you raise your hand if you think Canada is better than America?
Could we see a show of hands who would agree with that? Okay.
Well,
Versus a show of hands. Keep your hands up in the air. Okay, so generally speaking, Canada is a better country than the United States. Keep your hands up in the air.
Yeah, that looks like 90% of the kids here.
And then let me change the question and go back. Generally speaking, Canada is a better country than most countries. Okay. So there's something particularly about the United States.
Yeah. That's what just happened, isn't it? 90% of them put their hands up. Yeah, Canada's better than that United States place. But is Canada the best country on the planet? A lot of the Canadians here were not willing to go that far. So, I mean, I think that's nice. It's like, but what does that say about America? the Canadian opinion of America, in this classroom at least, and maybe on this campus, maybe in Canada. I don't know what kind of sample size we're dealing with here. It seems like the prevalent opinion here is Canadians at least think, oh, Canada, I'd rather live in Canada than America, no question. And a lot of Americans, especially in the more modern time, a lot of Americans, when they get upset with how things are going in America, they get uncomfortable with something in America, a policy, or just whatever, they often are like, I need to move to Canada or something, or some kind of like European country that runs things differently with different policies. Like, that's definitely something you'll hear on American social media and stuff. Yeah.
Indeed, there is, where these young people are concerned. Listen to some of these opinions.
Keep it short. Like, give me a couple of words.
Americans are pompous. I think they're ignorant.
Oh, whoa! Okay, we're getting to the good stuff. And I'm totally, like, cool with whatever they say. Like, I actually am super fascinated in opinions on America in general. What do we have here? Pompous? Arrogant, was it? Or
keep it short. Like, give me a couple of words.
Americans are pompous. I think they're ignorant.
I think Americans are addicted to war.
Discriminatory.
Just about no.
Addicted to war and discriminatory. Well, Canada in particular, the more I've learned about it, is like super like multicultural and very much like a proponent of it from what I've seen. So honestly, I'd probably say compared to America, Canada is more like an advocate for multiculturalism. It's very nice to see.
No one had a positive word.
They're like frenemies. They're friends and enemies at the same time.
Pushy.
Pushy.
They are a little bit
Pushy. Get out of my way. Get out of my way, you Canadian. I gotta get my Tim Hortons coffee. Move. Like that kind of pushy.
power hungry.
Arrogant is
Power hungry.
Pushy.
They are a little bit power hungry.
arrogant is the first word that comes to mind when I think of Americans.
Arrogant. I've heard arrogant a few times. Arrogant, as in thinking you know it all, which is a very bad trait to have. That actually has to do with like what I was saying earlier in this video, where I was saying one of the best traits you could have is, well, you can get a little nuanced here. You have to have some level of like confidence to do anything, like, and actually like do something in life. You need to have a little confidence to get your first step going and accomplish something, but you need to not be arrogant and willing to accept information from all sorts of different viewpoints in order to make like the best version of yourself, right?
Of course, it's nothing new that Canadians describe themselves first and foremost as not Americans. But as Canadian self-confidence grows, and pollsters say it is most definitely growing, the old knee-jerk anti-Americanism, the resentment born principally of Canadian insecurity, seems to have morphed into something else. A supercilious conviction of moral superiority.
Okay.
Just read the online postings at the end of columns about America in Canadian news websites.
Yeah, well, this is interesting because obviously I don't get to take in like Canadian news, let alone Canadian like news opinion pieces and articles on America, what's going on in America, like how Canadian media like talks about America. That'd be very interesting. Maybe they're going to talk about it. And I can see they're pulling up stuff that's like very kind of old at this point, but what it's all good. Like it's still like relevant to think about.
A few recent excerpts from the CBC site. American politicians preaching complete gobbledygook under the guise of nauseating American patriotism and belief in God is pathetic.
Wow.
That drew 273 thumbs-up approvals from readers.
273? That's not like that many. Like, if it was a couple million, then I'd be a little more concerned.
Or, the United States is the most backward country in the developed world. 240 thumbs up. Or,
Okay.
the collective citizens of the U.S. are as dumb as bricks. And so on.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Wow. Okay.
Michael Adams has studied such attitudes in depth.
Well, 5 years ago, Neil, I would have said we would feel morally superior. We're the kinder, gentler society.
That I keep hearing that, like, phrasing over and over again. Is that like a common train of thought, like in Canada, of just moral superiority? Interesting way of putting it.
We're multicultural. We have health care.
It's true. It's good points. Hockey. You have hockey, too.
But now, says Adams, it's something more. Canada's celebration of Olympic victories over Americans verged on jingoism. And the mission in Afghanistan, says Adams, has Canadians feeling they are pound for pound better war fighters than the Americans, too.
Oh, okay.
And unlike them, we can mock ourselves.
We're confident enough to make fun of ourselves, and in that sense, we feel superior because we then are even more ironic. It's like being the smart kid who feels smarter than her little brother who doesn't get it.
Yeah, okay. That's funny that that he mentions being aware enough to make fun of yourself. That's like a confidence in a way. Confident enough in yourself to poke fun at yourself, to say, hey, I don't know certain things, but I do other things really great. So that is certainly, and one of the biggest things some of the students were saying was American arrogance, was it? Just being kind of a know-it-all, thinking you know the way to do things in the correct way. Yeah, that is the opposite of what he's saying. So Canadians take a lot of pride in that, and I think that's absolutely valid to take pride in that kind of thing. I think that's a really smart way of viewing the world.
Well, we feel like the smart older sister who gets it.
Talking to America! Nothing distills that notion like Rick Mercer's famous Talking to Americans skits. Essentially, Mercer exploits the American eagerness to engage with strangers, no matter how silly the topic.
I had no idea that Canada.
Whoa, wow, hey, what is this? It's like reality TV. Well, it's a guy interviewing on the street. What? He goes up to Americans and just like lets them talk. Oh boy, I'm a little scared.
Canada's on a 20-hour clock.
But it's actually the same amount of time, but just our minutes are longer.
Okay.
By American standards.
Well, I think it should be switched.
Yeah.
Canada, please move to the 24-hour clock.
Oh, so he goes to Americans and tells them something that's just absurd and sees if the American will like question it at all or be like, "What? That's not true." And most of the time the American doesn't catch on. Okay, I get it.
Hi, I'm Governor Tom Vilsack from Iowa. Canada, congratulations on your new 24-hour clock.
There are
Oh, boy.
differences of perspective. And
Gordon Giffen has heard it all. When he was the American ambassador to Canada and traveled the country from one end to the other, one theme stood out.
as a country, as a people, Canadians were more generous, more thoughtful, more caring, more courteous, and more global in their perspective than Americans. And then
Okay, okay. Doesn't surprise me, to be honest.
usually they'd conclude by telling me that Canadians were also more modest than Americans. And I found a little irony in that, but
But they did.
not particularly.
Giffen
They are poking a little fun at Canadian modesty here. Like, if in your mind you are pretty confident that you're doing things better than America in this case, you kind of want to acknowledge that and be like, yeah, we're aware of it. But then there's the thing where you also want to be a bit modest as well, which is hard to do when you're like, no, I'm pretty sure we're doing things better. It's kind of funny.
also heard a lot of this.
I think of them as selfish just because they don't take the same time that we do to learn about them as they do us.
As I traveled,
Yeah. I've actually had a lot of super nice Canadians comment and message me about that exact topic, where they're just saying to me, like, thanks for taking the time to, like, learn about Canada. You don't really see a lot of Americans do that. Like, actually just get outside our bubble, learn about somewhere else, learn about Canada. Like, I think it's wild how little Americans know about Canada. I think that was one of the main motivators for me, was coming to the realization that there's this whole place, literally, like, I don't know how to say it, this whole place right next to the United States that is exactly like us, that in so many ways, that I know nothing about. Why do I know nothing, like literally nothing? Like, that doesn't seem right. That doesn't make any sense. Why didn't we learn more in like American education about Canada and lots of things? And anyway, I think that's one of the beautiful things about being in the modern day, right? Now there's YouTube, internet, all sorts of stuff where at least sitting here in my chair, I can step outside the bubble here, the square that I'm in, or rectangle. Yep, this rectangle. And actually learn a lot.
Canada, I'd get a lot of people who would say, well, we know everything about you, you know nothing about us. And I'd say, well, tell me everything you know about Kansas. And people's eyes would glaze over, or, you know, Nebraska or Arkansas.
Okay, I like that he's sticking up for some of the American ignorance there and being like, well, Canadians probably know more about America than Americans know about Canada, for sure. But America has 50 states, you know, we got a lot of different people, a lot of different places, and knowing what's going on, like, in each place in America is pretty difficult to do. So, I don't know, maybe that saves us a little bit.
Here's a few other things Canadians don't know about Americans. They give more to charity than any other nation, and far more per capita than Canadians do.
Okay.
Americans work harder and more productively than Canadians.
These are interesting points. Yeah, Americans do give a lot to charity. Like, I think this is old, but I think I can safely say that. I see collections for charity all the time. Even when you go to the grocery store, the cashier will be like, do you want to donate 50 cents to this charity every time you go buy something? Like, and I don't know if it's Americans trying to feel better about themselves, or if it comes from a genuine place of caring, or some combination of both of those. But Americans do like to give to charity, and they like to work their butts off, work themselves into the ground. That is definitely like definitely a big part of American culture. I don't know if that's a great thing. It's good to be passionate about your job and do great work. But to be known as the folks who just work and work and work, I don't know if that's good.
Than Canadians do. Americans work harder and more productively than Canadians.
Okay.
They send more aid abroad, even on a per capita basis, than anyone else. And where Canadians are concerned, while Americans might not have studied the nation to their north, they seldom have a mean word to say.
Yeah.
In our darkest hours, Canada has been with us.
Yeah. Seriously. I think all the criticism, if you want to have criticisms about America, no problem. Absolutely fine. But just as a interesting side note, Americans don't seem to have much criticisms of Canada, although Americans don't know much about Canada to criticize. So, yeah, I don't know there.
NBC's Tom Brokaw broadcast an essay about Canada during the Olympics.
Jesse the Sponge.
Canadians are so generous, they share with us their brightest stars in music, comedy, acting, sports, and journalism.
A lot of Americans probably don't even know that all those actors and musicians are Canadian. So it's kind of funny.
And here was the result when we took a paper and pen down to DuPont Circle here in D.C. We simply asked people to write down one word about Canada.
Friendly. A good neighbor. Friendly. Quiet. Hockey nuts.
Neil McDowell,
Accurate.
CBC News, Washington.
That was kind of a nice way to end it, honestly. It's kind of made me feel good about America. Yeah, this was by CBC News, The National. I liked this. That was great. I really enjoyed that they actually did a whole report about this. A whole news segment. I wonder how common this is. That was very enlightening. Very, very enlightening. Only a small section of this video was actually interviewing people. I thought it was going to be interviewing random people on the street. That kind of video. And being, what do you think of America? But this was almost as interesting, if not more interesting. This little analysis. Wow. A lot of good stuff. That was actually, I really enjoyed that. Opened my perspective up a bit. Anyway, if you enjoyed this as well, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to Canada, Canadian culture, stuff in Canada, about Canada that I've never heard or learned about before, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.